Hey everybody, welcome back for another week and another review of Impact Wrestling. This is the King of the Mountain podcast. I am your host, BQ, in the place to be. Shouts out to all the other outstanding Impact Wrestling, Global Force Wrestling podcasts out there, like the Heelcast. My boys over there, Raven Effect, came on last week. We had a good show, so we're going to try to link up a little bit more in the future. See if we can do a show of him, myself, and brother underscore real soon. So look forward to that. Shouts out to the Impact heads. Kyle, who used to be a co-host on the show, is one of the co-hosts on that show. They're in the infancy stages. They've done about 3 shows or so far. So definitely check out the Impact heads. Shouts out to Robert Does Wrestling, Anthem of Impact. Of course, my homies at the Booking the Territory podcast, and Andre Corbeil. Make sure you guys checking all these great podcasts out and staying up in the news and of Impact Wrestling and professional wrestling in general. So still got Allie coming on the show pretty soon. I should be talking to her within the next few days to set up a time and date. She wanted to make sure she got the Impact tapings out of the way. Obviously they had a busy time with Slammiversary and all that, so I will be setting that up fairly soon with Allie. Don't forget, you have the opportunity to get Allie a King of the Mountain podcast t-shirt. And the way that I'm running this little contest is you PayPal me at least $2 over at kotmradio@gmail.com. If you give me a $2 entry, that puts your name in the hat. For every additional $1 you send, it puts the name in the hat as well. We're going to purchase Allie a shirt, and the winner, I'm going to draw the name randomly. I have an app that's really good for that kind of stuff. So draw the name randomly. Make sure you get a shout out from Allie once she receives the shirt. And I will also make sure that you get to listen to the interview about 5 days early before it comes out. So actually, that's going to be for anyone who donates. So the winner will get a shout out and the credit for purchasing the shirt. And then everyone who did donate, you'll get to hear the interview early. So just send $2 or more over to kotmradio@gmail.com. That'll cover the shirt, and we will get it on and popping. I'm a member of Sienna's Patreon, which is basically a fan club, and she has different tiers. Most of you are probably familiar with how Patreon works. You know, I spend about $10 a month for that tier. You can do it for as little as $1, and even if you do $1, it gets you into an exclusive Facebook page, and it's a really good thing to be a part of. You know, it helps one of our favorite wrestlers out. It's you're not really spending that much, and the Facebook page is really cool because she's in there. You know, it's a very intimate setting. You know, it's 50 of us in there, so because this is a fairly new thing she started a couple months ago, but it's cool because if you're one of those people who like conversing with one of your favorite stars or knockouts, you know, she's in there in the group, she's posting, she's active, and she responds to you. So it's cool, and it's doesn't cost you anything. Even $1 a month will get you in the Facebook group. So you just got to head over to patreon.com/AllisonK. I always have a hard time spelling Allison, but if you just go to her Twitter, it's the link in her bio. So it's her Patreon, and you know, show your support to Sienna. She has also agreed to come on the show pretty soon, so would really appreciate if, you know, the KOTM family could get behind and help one of our favorite stars out. Don't forget, we're also on ProWrestlingTees.com. Just look up King of the Mountain podcast. We got a couple great shirts there, so definitely check it out. If you've been keeping up with my YouTube channel, as of last week, I've been uploading new digital content every few days. So what I'm trying to do with the YouTube channel, instead of just being a one-trick pony and uploading a podcast every week, I am doing my best to cover the breaking news as it happens. And I'm also doing some vlogs. So I did one this past week about the importance of casual fans. And then I did updates on Alberto El Patron and Paige with the domestic and when he got suspended. So my initial one did really, really well with the views and everything. It's brought in a lot of new traffic to my page. And I've got a few that I'm working on next week. And I'm going to be thinking outside the box quite a bit. I'm not going to just be doing Impact Wrestling stuff, but it'll be related to the company. So there's a vlog that I'll be working on regarding the challenges of rebranding. So a lot of people think rebranding is just a logo and a name, and that's it. So there's a much more difficult process in that, and there's a much bigger picture that I don't think the average person always understands. So branding has become a very much of a buzzword lately, over the last year or so, but it is a important part in the marketing process. So we're going to talk about the challenges of rebranding. I'm going to be talking about the importance of digital content and why when they upload to the Global Force Impact YouTube channel, how they've been doing all the new shows and uploading something every day. Talking about the importance of doing that when it comes to growing an audience. Because a lot of people think, well, who cares that digital content is up, the views are up, subscribers are up, who cares, So we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to use my own self as an example because I'm doing the same thing. And then I'm working on one I'm excited about called Trust the Process. If you follow sports at all, the Philadelphia 76ers had a, quote, Trust the Process, and it included getting bad for several years before they could get good. And I think there's a lot of comparisons between that and the way the company is right now to where they let some of the top names go. So, definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. You just got to look me up, KOTM Radio or KOTM Podcast, however you want to look it up, and subscribe. With that being said, whatever platform you're listening to today, please subscribe. I don't know if SoundCloud is going to be hanging around much longer. I heard they're going out of business. Potentially, but if you're listening to me there, hit subscribe. YouTube, Podbean, whatever it is, I really appreciate your subscriptions. Whew, okay, so that's it for all the fluff. Today I am joined by Dylan.
Howdy, you doing?
Hey, I'm great. I've been excited to have you in here, or have you on the show.
Hi, Madison Rain. Nice to meet you.
Excuse me? I can't believe it.
Man, what are we gonna do?
I've had so many people say they were interested in coming on, but you were one of the ones I was excited to have. I listened to some of your stuff on YouTube, and I was like, yeah, I got to have this guy. So
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for being on, though. And how's your day going, man? I mean, we were supposed to start this a couple hours ago, but Murphy's Law kicked in a little bit for me over here. You've been patient.
Yeah, I've been doing pretty good. I've had a pretty open Saturday, so just been chilling around waiting for this.
Where are you located, by the way? I never asked you.
Just outside of Boston.
Okay, cool. Gosh, I'll be in Austin. Not Austin, but
Boston.
Oh, Boston. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, sometimes I mumble the starts of sentences.
Okay, no, that's all good. Not Austin, but Boston. Works for me. Before we get into Impact, I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak here a little bit. I'm curious your thoughts. I don't want to beat a dead horse too much, but what are your thoughts on the whole situation with Alberto El Patron and Paige? He's been suspended. A lot of people think, well, if he wasn't charged, he doesn't need to be suspended. And it was largely a PR move. But what have been your thoughts?
The whole thing's kind of a mess. I think when it first broke, I was in the crowd of wait for the facts, because all we knew was that he was arrested on domestic violence charges, and in the state of Florida, that is, how do I put this? Essentially, if someone calls in domestic violence, no matter what, someone has to be taken in by Florida state law. So that's why I was sitting there going, let's wait for the facts. There might have been literally nothing there. It could have been a shouting match and people were uncomfortable. But as more things came in, I was like, oh, they need to do something about this. Not sure what they can do. They don't run a full-time schedule. It's not like they can suspend him. But then they did, so I don't know. I think it was fair he was punished. I'm not sure this was the best method to take. Maybe fine him or fire him. I don't know if firing him would be the best bet, but it would make more sense than suspension.
Yeah, I don't think firing is necessary. And there's a lot of things I've been going back and forth with in my head on this topic, but as I've said, it's just a very toxic relationship, and toxic relationships are very hard to get out of. And you have beer goggles, because I've been in a couple relationships, especially one that was extremely toxic. And when you're in a very unhealthy relationship like that, the highs are extremely high, because when you get along, you're celebrating the fact that you're getting along more than two people who get along on a consistent basis. Like it's some kind of achievement, and the high is very, very high, and you're extremely happy when that's happening, and it's all you want in this world. And then the lows are rock bottom, And, that's when you start getting into these arguments. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore, cursing each other out. I'm leaving you. And then you make up. And because with those kind of relationships, there's never a medium. There's never something in the middle. It's either a high or either a low. And you're just never thinking rationally. And that's kind of what's going on. You alluded to the state of Florida. I used to live there. And I had a girlfriend years ago that we got in an argument, and she started grabbing my clothes and throwing them over the balcony onto the street. And I remember I came up from behind her and I wrapped my arms around her as to get her to stop, and she started kicking around, and we fell down on the floor. And they called, our neighbors underneath us called the cops, and they came, and they were pretty cool. They saw the situation. They saw that there was no like domestic violence or anything, but they understood. And I was very honest. I said, I wrapped my arms around her. She threw herself on the ground, and we were pretty much rolling around and knocking a bunch of stuff over. And he had explained to me, in the state of Florida, if we come out, we're supposed to take someone back with us. He's like, I think with this situation here, it's a misunderstanding, but he was making that clear. Like, if we come out again, someone's going back with us. We don't care what the answer is. So it's very interesting that you say that, and I think that is something people need to take in mind, that if something really serious happened, they would have taken them in.
Here was a lot of states, they just don't take domestic violence seriously in a lot of states, where they have horrible laws in place or they have lenient laws in place. A lot of people are just used to the whole, if somebody was arrested, that means they're guilty, right? They don't understand that Florida actually has, I'd say, almost too strict of laws on the issue by the fact that they normally have to bring somebody in. And so I was sitting there waiting like, yeah, we should wait for the facts. I think that was the thing that not many people understood. Well, why would they know the state laws for domestic violence in a state they don't live in? I mean, it doesn't make sense why a random person in, say, like Tennessee would know that.
Right. There's just, that's just the internet. Everyone's, what do they say? They got their Facebook degrees or law degrees from Twitter and everything.
Yeah.
So, but as far as the suspension goes, it was a PR move. I was explaining that, well, the company's not a full-time company, so they're not really suspending him from anything, maybe from a house show, or, if they start taping. It all depends how long the investigation goes, but, usually that's a pretty standard thing. If someone is under investigation for something, that you initiate some kind of suspension or something like that. It's standard in the business world, but I think for PR reasons, it was very important, because, when there's certain decisions you have to make to save face, and that was something that they had to do in order to, for the wrestling world to look at them and say, hey, okay, they're taking this serious.
Your normal company in any business is going to have to do something like this to not look really bad. A company that's literally had to fight back from essentially being the biggest joke in an entire industry, they're going to have to do it doubly so, because people don't have a good view of GFW, so they had to make sure they got right on this and did it right.
Exactly, and it's a new era, new company, so something they had to do. Let's talk about the show, though, on a lighter note. I think a lot of people are done with the El Patron page thing.
I'd say this week's show was fantastic, honestly. I didn't catch it when it was airing, but I caught it last night on the DVR. It was fantastic. I love the bit with Grado, honestly.
I did too, and I saw some people not enjoying it online, but a good wrestling company has something for everybody. And one of the reasons I watch Ring of Honor very casually, and one of the reasons is because when I watch it, it's just every match is just laid out the same, and it's just all work rate stuff, and it's all flips, and it's all near falls, and it's all high impact finishers and super finishers, and there's just nothing in there other than Dalton Castle to me that breaks anything up. I think you have to have a little bit of everything. So
yeah, I mean, Impact, I think specifically this week just hit we can hit every little check on the checklist, and I will say that probably wasn't ideal, but it was a lot better than what other companies do. Because they did have something for everybody, from the minis to the X Division to Grado.
Yeah, they really did. And I saw, I think my buddy Robert does wrestling online. He said that they maybe checked too many boxes. You know, maybe they went out of their way too much to have something for everybody on this one. But I like this show a lot. I always go to 411 Mania and look at their reviews, and this was one that they did not rate very high at all, and I was pretty shocked because there was really nothing I didn't care for. You know, there's always something, things I'll do a little bit different, but
I mean, I'll be honest, I felt like the main event might have gone on a little too, I don't know, I found myself maybe towards the middle of it being a little more prone to check my phone for Twitter during like the actual match and not just the commercials. But other than that, the entire show was pretty good. And even then, the main event wasn't bad. It just felt a little long.
And this was their highest rated episode of the year. So last week, they broke a record, and they did so again this week. So I think we had 274 or something like that. It was, well, not 274, 374. I'm sorry. So whatever Jeff Jarrett is doing is working. You know, people can question all these little decisions, but people are watching.
I mean, I think, and this might just be complete right out of my ass right here, but I think the Super Ed Scub right here, I think that's drawn some more interest into the thing currently. I've seen a lot of people online talking about it, and you look at some of the guys that they brought in for this. Drago, Sammy Guevara is awesome. Been telling people forever to check into this dude. He's awesome. He's going to be the future of wrestling, I'm telling you now. And ACH, people like that. These awesome guys that have never really had a national exposure, or if they have, they've really not been on a national exposure and taken kind of seriously. And I think this is drawing a little bit of interest, even if it's just for a short while, from people that might normally just say, nah, I'm not going to watch Impact. They've burnt me in the past.
I agree. I think these partnerships are really working. I think what they were doing with D'Angelo Williams and some of the little things they were doing with Slammiversary, I think it did bring some outside viewers in. I really did, because I mean, the proof is in the viewership for the last 2 episodes. I mean, it's much higher than anything has been all year. It's getting up in that territory when the Hardys were around in the Final Deletion segment. All that stuff was going on. So whatever they're doing a great job. And are you going to check out these one night onlys?
I haven't really had much that's kind of driven me to do so, but
because they have they're gonna play the Global Force, the tapings that they did for Global Force Wrestling years ago.
That sounds awesome.
I think it sounds great. Yeah, I'm very excited.
You hear about these tapings? They're kind of like ever since we got what was it? Old cage mats. Paul Ellering's up in the little shark cage. Awesome thing. That was like the greatest lost tape of wrestling. Essentially, now that WWE put that up on the network, every lost tape of wrestling's up there. It's like GFW's tapings is like the new lost tape. And honestly, they don't sound bad. A lot of the people on there are pretty impressive people. You got Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, TJ Perkins. You got Fallah Bah like 2.5 years ago, back when he was still kind of mobile.
Mm-hmm.
It's be entertaining.
Yeah, PJ Black's on there. Bobby Roode is on him. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm pretty excited for it. I'm not a huge. I do order the one night onlys, but I'm not a big fan of the matinee tapings that they do, because it's there's not that many people show up to them and everything. But this should be good stuff. So getting into the show, it kicks off. Usually, I'm not a big fan, and I don't think many people are, of them kicking off with a talking segment. But this one, if you tuned in for this, like if you just were flipping through the channels, weren't sure if you're gonna watch a show or not, I thought this really hooked you. This is why I've been liking El Patron's work. I've said several times that when he was in WWE, I didn't care for him, but I've really enjoyed his work with the company. If we can just, obviously we're doing this podcast, we're just gonna block out all the crap with Paige. We're just gonna talk about the show as is. He had a fire in his voice here that I can't think of anyone else who's delivered anything that passionately in a while.
The opening segment, I'll be honest, I've never been too big on talking opening segments unless it's someone like really charismatic, like say your Austin Aries or your Bobby Roodes back in like 2011. But looking at this current thing with Alberto El Patron and LAX and Bobby Lashley, there's this weird sense. It almost feels like they enjoy what they're doing, and it shows on the screen through passion. And it was entertaining. I'll say that.
It was. I was very hooked, and they were just very. Everyone was very engaged in this segment, and the crowd does feed off that stuff. I was talking with someone, a couple of guys on Twitter the other day. You know, I'll join into some WWE conversation sometimes, whatever. Not that I am an expert, but I was saying that, you know, with Roman Reigns, that I genuinely don't like him. It wasn't like, oh, well, he's the top guy, he's the push. You know, if he was in Impact, you would like him. No, I really don't like him. And one of my main reasons was there was just no heart or passion behind him talking. You know, like it's not from the heart. It's scripted. There's nothing behind it. There's nothing behind his eyes when he's talking. It's just empty words. And I really appreciate something like this where it's just passion. It's fired up. These guys look like they are having a real conversation. They do not look like they're acting.
I think that in general, this week's opener showcased. I think probably the key thing it showcased here was how Impact is kind of a place for people to be reinvigorated. Like El Patron, even his run in WWE, he was kind of phoning it in. He didn't really seem like he gave a shit. And now there seems to be a fire of almost a little bit of mischief, like, oh, I don't really care, but I kind of love it anyways feel.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've been getting from him on TV lately.
And some people respond to the added pressure of being the man, being the guy. You know, when I was on active duty in the military, if I was in a situation where I was legitimately in charge, no one was micromanaging me, I would really shine. And if there were situations where I was just in the middle of a group and we were just all on the same playing field, I mean, that really wasn't an atmosphere that I did really well in. So some people just respond to, the pressure very well of being the top guy, and I think he's done a very good job. So the Super X Cup, as you mentioned, this has been a lot of fun so far. They have very legitimate competitors in this, and this wasn't last time they highlighted the X Division. The last two times has been a Destination X of last year, which was not even a little bit an X Division show. And then I
think the most memorable part of that show was Moose debuted, right?
Yeah, that was the one where Moose showed up.
Yeah.
But Lashley was wrestling that. EC3 had a match. Bennett was on it. There was nothing X Division about that shit. And they also did a one night only. God, I forget what they called. All the X Division terms confuse me sometimes. But there's a one night only X Division extravaganza, I think they call it, or something. That was awful. It was that was the only one night only that I was watching, and I just stopped. I was so bored. That was at a time where I think the WWE was doing the Cruiserweight Classic and everything, and the pick of the litter for Impact to do this X Division show was just not great.
Well, I think Impact's kind of had an issue for the last 2 or 3 years of their X Division. Is a lot of the guys kind of feel the same. Like, they all feel different, but they all feel different in the same way. And it's not that fun of a division if everyone has the same look, the same style. I think there's a reason why they hit their stride when there was a kind of big dude that was still in there just kicking ass, and a fat dude that was massive and kicked ass, and then a bunch of flippy guys.
Mm-hmm.
But now they have, now they've reinvigorated this year. But, a year ago, you had Trevor Lee and, Christ, who am I trying to remember? The other, Trevor Lee and...
Andrew Everett,
and there was, 2 or 3 other guys, DJZ and all them, and they were fun. But they all felt the same in a way. DJZ was the most different, and even then he felt the same.
Yeah, their offense wasn't super special. And I said about this time last year on the podcast, I said, the X Division is never coming back. I made a very bold statement, and it's proved that I've been wrong here. I don't know if it's ever going to get to the Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles stuff, but it's getting to be really fun, and this is an opportunity for them to really seize the moment, because the reason I had made that comment, I said, WWE is really catering to these cruiserweights right now. Ring of Honor always has. Their ability to stand out and be special anymore is not there, and because there's those other companies are giving cruiserweights an option. It's going to be hard for them to sign guys, but right now they're really doing it.
WWE giving them their own full division, kind of shining a light on it. And in Ring of Honor, the guys that would kind of be regulated to a division in WWE or TNA or GFW now, I'm sorry, are kind of like the main guys in Ring of Honor. So TNA doesn't have the ability to stand out, I'd say, with this, but I think they have the ability to do it the best if they put their mind to it. They've always done it the best.
Yeah.
I just think they need to put their mind to actually doing it the best, giving them some time, showing that, hey, they're the best in the world. Look, we have Desmond and Xavier, we have Sammy Guevara, we have Davey Richards. Look at them. They're awesome.
Right, and this Super X Cup is really cool, and they're not phoning it in by any means. I mean, these matches have been a lot of fun, but with this week,
the one from this week was fantastic, and it blew me away that they went with that when I never would have saw them go with ACH, honestly.
Yeah, so we got ACH with Andrew Everett, 6.5 minute match, so they got a little bit of time. It was a lot of fun, and as you said, a lot of people are doing the same thing. But not Andrew Everett, but ACH did a couple moves that we have not seen on Impact Television before. Little things, but it's just really refreshing to see that stuff. And as I said, I'm very casual when it comes to Ring of Honor, but my favorite wrestlers there when I watched it were Moose and ACH, and now they're with the company, and we don't know that Sammy Guevara and ACH are signed. I mean, I know that Jeff Jarrett made a comment that they're going to do a better job of highlighting where wrestlers come from, because sometimes you'll watch a wrestling show and they just act like this guy appeared out of the blue, and he said, we're going to highlight the independent promotions they came from, and they said ACH, who was in Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling and AAW. So they're really, highlighting this stuff. So for all we know, they might be part of the company, but right now they're focusing on, hey, this is where the guy came from.
I mean, I'll be honest, I'd love to see ACH and Sammy get picked up. ACH has never really had his shot to show what he's got. And I'm serious. If Impact, I'm sorry, losing my voice for a second here. If Impact wants to carry ahead into the future, they want to show, hey, we're a new company. Sammy, strap a fucking rocket to the kid and push him to the top. He is fantastic, and if you don't jump on him now, he's going to outgrow the company soon. I hate to say that because I love the company. He's already working at PWG. He's working their biggest tournament of the year. He just got his first booking in Japan. He's massive in Mexico. And he's got a sizable gig in the American Indies. If Impact doesn't jump on him right now, they're going to lose their chance, and I think they need to do that.
I've heard someone say that he's the closest thing that they could have to a new AJ Styles. I know that's a very big, big shoes to fill, but
I think those are very big shoes for him to fill today at 23 years old. But I think give him a decade to improve. He might be where AJ was at 33 when he was at the top of Impact.
So he's got a match next week with before we get into that, ACH wins this match. Didn't see that one coming. It kind of seems like the Everett push is continues to be halted.
Actually, I've seen some clips they put up on their YouTube channel, I think it was. It seems like they're trying to go with almost a breaking point story with him.
Yeah, I got that too.
Like he's falling so far down and eventually he's just going to snap and there he is. He's suddenly brutal.
Yeah, I got that vibe too. So that's why they're doing such a good job storytelling with their digital content, because they only have one show a week, and if you just rely on telling your stories on that show, it's never going to work.
You're not going to do a very good job,
right? But these little segments go a long way. So that I saw that too. That was really, really interesting. And let's I hope ACH sticks around. I really do. I remember watching a match with him and in Ring of Honor against. Oh my God! People are gonna kill me because I can't remember his name. The the real popular Bullet Club guy. Oh my God.
Adam Cole?
No.
Omega.
Yeah, Kenny Omega. So people are gonna
I was
castrate
trying to
me
think
for.
of like the one that was in Ring of Honor, but yeah, Omega's like probably the really popular one.
Yeah, so the two of them had a match, and I remember watching on Ring of Honor television, and it was obvious to me that Kenny Omega was going to win the match. It's just one of those things you see who's pitted against each other. You know he's going to win. But I remember thinking to myself, man, ACH is getting hosed here because he was hitting some just incredible moves. And there were so many opportunities where it looked like the match was over. And that's why I don't like Ring of Honor, full time, because I get very fatigued watching them kick out of all these super finishers and kicking out of 3 finishers in a row and stuff like that. It fatigues me as a viewer, but I remember being very hooked on this match and felt like ACH had all these opportunities where he should have won it. And then he ended up losing, and I was like, man, as good as this match was, he ultimately was like jobbed to this guy. So that really bothered me, and as he was someone I said, man, I just love to see him out of there and have a different opportunity. But so next week is going to be should be next week, Sammy Guevara and Drago. I would imagine that's next week's, if I'm looking at the way these brackets are. So at first I thought it was going to be Xavier against ACH, but no, it'll be Xavier will have the winner of Guevara and Drago. So can't go wrong there.
I mean, I'm looking at these brackets currently. If I had to take a bet on who I think's making it to the finals, you got Davey Richards is in this tournament, right?
Yeah.
Or am I missing him up? Yeah, I'm picking Davey Richards and ACH to go to the finals. Honestly,
no, they have a semifinal matchup. So if Davey
am
Richards
I missing the bracket here?
Yeah. So if Davey Richards wins,
it's kind of oddly formatted, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's
okay.
Yeah, Davey Richards, if he wins between him and Ishimori, the winner of that match goes against ACH. Xavier fights the winner of Guevara and Drago.
In that case, my money is on Drago versus Richards. For some reason, I thought, okay, weird bracket. I'm thinking Drago versus Richards for the finals, honestly.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. It's I really think this Destination X show is going to be great. So after this Gail Kim talks, I think everybody knew where she was going with this. She came out and announced her retirement. So it's, kind of sad. She's
just kind of getting up there in age for a wrestler. So I mean, it's not too out of the window that it's happening. It's just kind of a little shocking, I guess you could say. It came out of nowhere.
It is, and it's unfortunate. She's one of the few people who have stepped forward and said, "This is my company. I'm not going anywhere else." And it is refreshing to hear someone say that. I always say that we want people around who want to be there, not people who are there for a pit stop before WWE. I've also said I don't care if someone eventually moves on to WWE, but at least give us 100% while you're here. Don't pull a Mike Bennett, come accomplish nothing and leave.
You want more of the AJ Styles who come there and they're going to give them their entire body just in return for being there. And if he goes to WWE, oh well, that's cool, but he's there to be a part of Impact.
Yeah, come do everything you can do. That was always my issue with Bennett. He took an opportunity. I can't knock him for that. But for me as a man, if I start a project, I'm going to finish it. He didn't do anything in the company. That's just what really blows my mind. He didn't accomplish anything. And then they had the nerve to say, "Oh,
Mike Bennett fan," but I hated his run in Impact. I'm entirely with you on this one. It just didn't feel important at any point.
No, I saw that dude wrestle in Ring of Honor. I knew what he was capable of, and he never gave us that. And he, I don't mean to beat a dead horse. He didn't do anything. He didn't accomplish anything. And I think that's a lot of the reason at the end he was losing a lot is because I think the company knew that he had one foot out the door, and that's not. We don't want those kind of guys around. I mean, if you listen to his interview, I think it was with Edge and Christian. I mean the dude absolutely had one foot out the door. Maria said, "Oh, we loved our time there. It was just time to go." Like, what do you mean it was time to go? He didn't do anything. And she hijacked the damn Knockouts division for an entire year. So I was upset when they left, but only because I thought he had a good world title run in him if they could get him engaged. But with her, I was done with her after about 3 or 4 months in the company. At first I was like, oh man, this mic work is phenomenal. And then she was so overexposed and just kind of ruining the knockouts. But there's a difference between Bobby Roode comes in, does everything that he can do, Austin Aries, Samoa Joe, AJ, these guys doing everything they can do, and now they take it to the next level. So it's just refreshing to see someone like Gail Kim come and say, "This is my company. I'm not going anywhere else." So probably the worst part of this show right here, Chris Adonis comes to the ring, and I think it's safe to say I'm in one way, shape, or form a fan of most of the people on the roster. Chris Adonis, I'm not huge on, and he had a segment with the Swole Mates. This is the example of what they need to do less of.
I'll be honest. This was my piss break. I didn't even see this segment. I honestly, I entirely skipped it. I saw him come on the screen. I was like, okay, bathroom time.
Yep, time to go. He got in the ring, pretty much was having a pose down with these Swole Mates guys, and no one knows who they are. Like in the arena, that's the first day of tapings, because this is the second half of the first day, so they don't really know who these guys are. We at home are still trying to grasp what this show is about that they're doing. But one of them hops over, and these guys are yoked. I mean, unbelievably yoked. It's especially one of them. And then Eli Drake comes down, and there's a shoving match. It's very silly. One of the guys, pushed, kind of like ripped the ring barrier, kind of like Scott Steiner did at Slammiversary. Just grabbed the barrier and like ripped it out of the way and stepped in the ring. And I was like, why is there heat here all of a sudden? I just hope this was more of a cross promotion with the show, and for all intents and purposes, I think some people will check it out because they were on the show. But I just hope it kind of ends there. So Grado, this was, we talked about, this was pretty funny. He was talking to the entire Knockouts locker room trying to get a date.
I think the highlight of this was he was tapping on Sienna's shoulder, and she just kind of turns around and looks at him, and off he goes. That one got a good chuckle out of me. That
did it with me too. That one hit home with me because my wife acts exactly like that when my kids come to ask her for something. I mean, I showed her the clip, the little video clip. I said, "This is you and the kids right here," and she's like, "Yep." I mean, he just pops up from behind, taps her on the shoulder, and oh man, that was good. There was a girl in there I didn't recognize.
It was the blonde one, right before Rosemary.
No, she was like a brunette.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
I wasn't sure who she was. I know Sienna posted in her Patreon group a picture with her the other day, and I feel pretty knowledgeable on women's wrestling, and I just didn't know who it was. So
it's probably someone that's kind of obscure, but they're probably getting a shot with Impact.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done that a sizable amount of times in the recent memory. Like, oh, this person that's kind of good, but you've probably only seen them if you go to a ballroom in Nowheresville, Kentucky. They're awesome. See them.
Right. Because I had Amber Nova in there, and she's kind of an enhancement talent. I'm not on the indies, obviously, but she's an enhancement talent on the show. She's not part of the company, so maybe it was someone who came in the job. But so this was one of my down points of the night here. It was the Impact Grand Championship between Moose and Marufuji. So let me say, first of all, I watched Marufuji wrestle last week at an indie show against Donovan Dijak, and it was the greatest match I've ever witnessed live. I've always said the most entertained I've ever been live was watching a Great War, Bound for Glory. But as far as a wrestling match, I can't even begin to explain how great this match was, how engaged the audience was. I think the only thing with Marufuji that is an issue, wrestling-wise, and he did it in this match too, and he did it probably about 3 times against Dijak, is that he kicks out a little late at a pin sometimes. So it looks like it's a 3 count, and he's like a half second off sometimes. And that was really the only killer. But this, maybe someone will kill me for saying this, outside of the charisma that Nakamura has, because that's unrivaled, the charisma he has. In ring wise, like, I see no difference between those guys. Like what I saw with this match with Daija, I'm like stumbling over my words because I can't even put into words how incredible he was and how incredible the match was and the storytelling and I just can't. And then we get this was something I was really excited and jazzed for, and I felt like we were cheated.
I think the issue is we had two guys that we knew. Anyone that's ever seen either of them wrestle, on TV or otherwise, knows that these two are fucking phenomenal. And to see them go out there and just kind of... It wasn't bad. I can't call it bad. But something that wasn't good either. It was such a letdown.
It was a huge letdown. I think we got ripped off as far as what Marufuji can do. You know, Moose got in a majority of the offense. You know, they gave Marufuji round 2, which that's debatable. And I think they've really been struggling with booking these Grand Championship matches. Because with Eli Drake, they had to put it in a storyline that, you know, Bruce Pritchard screwed him. But the way that match was laid out, Eli Drake should have won it. And I think right now the agents are having a hard time structuring these matches. And they look pretty challenging to get, you know, to line up with the judges' score.
Well, it's a concept that sounds awesome on paper, but in practice it doesn't make any sense. And I think that's the biggest issue. I think they'd be better off if they just went back to like whatever that championship was called before. It was the TV title, whatever. Mm-hmm. It would just be better to have a random card belt that doesn't really mean much, rather than try to make one mean something but have it make no sense.
Right, and Dutch Mantella had said on Twitter that they are working on tweaking the rules of this. Jeff Jarrett said that they have 4 divisions right now: the X division, the tag, the knockouts, and the world title. So he almost didn't even count this as a division, but he did.
I wouldn't really count it as a division itself. It's more of a place for the maybe upper echelon X division guys that don't have anything going on, and the under echelon main event guys going on. They go to this belt.
Right.
So it doesn't really need to be its own division. But I think for something like this, for it to work best, it probably should have it.
Yeah, and he said that they do have plans for the GFW Next Gen title later in the year. So I think that title, I know that was like an X division for Global Force before, but I think it could serve as a legitimate mid-card title, because the Grand Championship is cool for what it is, but it's not a mid-card title. That should not be your intercontinental title, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I thought Moose got in way too much offense in this. We never really got to see Marufuji see what he could do. And then I think what really disappointed me too was that, so this guy's chops, and if you've heard this guy chop live, there's no louder chop in professional wrestling than what this guy does. No one hits harder than this guy. I'll put that up against anybody. And Moose actually no-sold one of the chops. And that really didn't sit well with me. It was almost like the match was, I don't want to say they treated Marufuji as a jobber, but they did not treat it like he had a chance to win this thing. You know, they wanted Moose to look strong.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who, I'll face it, I probably didn't have the most traditional upbringing as a wrestling fan. A lot of my early exposure was to Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Pro Wrestling Noah. A lot of it was big in like the late 2000s. Marufuji, I saw him work a few Pro Wrestling Noah shows on like DVDs that my dad somehow traded through the mail at the time. Just like the internet wasn't really, it existed, it wasn't that big, I guess you could say. And so I had a few DVDs here, and I'd always watch them. And Marufuji stood out. He was like 22 at the time of these DVDs. He was awesome. And I've always had a soft spot for him. So I've seen him live a few times now up in the Northeast Indies, and it's just a mindset of he's too good to just be treated like a joke. I don't want to say he was treated like a joke, but it kind of felt like he was.
Yeah, I just wasn't feeling it. And this is an issue I have as a fan. If you're going to advertise a match, make it good. It's one thing if, you know, you throw a match together at the last minute and this is what you get. I guess I can kind of understand it. But if you're gonna advertise a match like Moose versus Marufuji, you don't want to miss this episode. Give us a good match. Don't give us crap, because then we got cheated out of the finish too, where EC3 hit him with the ring bell, and he actually busted him open. I don't know if you saw those videos.
I haven't seen that, but it would kind of make sense. It looked kind of brutal on the TV.
Yeah, he busted him open pretty good. Hopefully in the next few days, because I know these guys were with them for the whole set of tapings. Hopefully we get more of him. Maybe we get a match with EC3 and Marufuji, but hopefully this isn't all we're gonna get from him, because he deserves way better than what they gave us here.
I mean, with this talent exchange, I think there's a great chance for. Honestly, I'd love to see for them to try to take someone like Marufuji and just put him at the top of the X division, kind of like keep away with the belt, because he could totally work in the X division, and it's a way of saying, "Hey, we have this great talent exchange with people from other countries," without having to take them into your top scene, but keep them somewhere where they can kind of do their thing. I think it would definitely be a good showcase for him, putting him as an X division top guy.
Yeah, screw it. Put a title on him. I mean, it's got to look like if this is really going to be a global wrestling company, if someone comes from another country, let them win a title. They can always switch it back in the set of tapings. It's not like, obviously he doesn't have long-term.
They tape for like 2 months in advance. They could put it on him for the first episode of the tapings and take it off for the last one, and boom, what do you know?
Yeah, exactly.
2 months of a champion.
Yeah, it can't come off like if someone comes from outside the company that they're going to come job. So after this, we get Trevor Lee coming out, and I was really entertained with this. We have not got layers like this to Trevor Lee in the entire time he's been with the company. We've never got this kind of charisma and attitude from him and personality. He came out the X Division belt because he stole it from Sanjay, and he came out and basically said, "Hey, I'm going to defend my title. I'm a fighting champion." I mean, this whole thing was this was great. What'd you think?
It was entertaining. I'll be honest, I wasn't super into it. Just not feeling the vibe of this, but it was certainly enjoyable.
William Weeks, he just followed me on Twitter. He has the potential to be. I know that James Ellsworth dude, when he was, jobbing for WWE for a little while, like he was super popular and then he got overexposed or whatever. This guy has the potential to be that. I mean, he's just like a popular jobber. I mean, and I don't use jobber as a offensive term. I'm just kind of using it here as wrestling fans talking. But as far as an enhancement talent, like I think he can be pretty popular with this. But it was a really, really short match. But I just like the layers we got with Trevor Lee here. I don't think he has a good look, and I think that hurts him a little, but it was really cool to see. I didn't understand why security was holding Sanjay back, but Trevor Lee, who stole the title, was walking around like he was good to go. Like, that was okay. But Sanjay trying to enter the arena was not.
Yeah, it kind of felt like maybe someone missed their timing or something, but it was fine. It just something fell off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we get Laurel Van Ness versus Ava Storee.
This was a good match.
Yeah, this was fun. This was the best Ava Storee has looked by far. I've seen some of her indie work, and she's always done a lot better than what she's done on Impact. And the first couple times that she was on Impact, I was like, there's no way. As much as I was pulling for it, I was like, there's no way they're going to sign this girl. There's no way she's here full time, because she was so green. And very robotic, very clunky. Wasn't selling the right way, the facial expressions, but this was the best she looked by far. And I wish she would have got an entrance. I don't like when they do the jobber entrance with people. They haven't done that in a while. It didn't dawn on me that they were going the Laurel and Grado thing until maybe like halfway through this match. Did you pick up, like, obviously we got the bride here?
Unfortunately, I had this spoiled for me through Twitter.
So
I already knew that Grado was coming out. But honestly, I think I would have made the connection, even though it's kind of an obvious one once you see it. It's one of those things that you never think of it, but then you just go, oh, that makes complete and total sense. Why didn't I think of that?
Right, it didn't dawn on me at all. I mean, like, the match was almost over. I was like, oh my God, this is who he's... Because, I didn't touch on it when we brought up the greatest storyline earlier. He's fear of being what's the word, deported. I was gonna say exported. fear of being deported. So they're kind of doing the angle where he has to find someone to marry. Like, this is perfect. And I think what's cool about it is that, intertwining storylines. You got Laurel that came off the Braxton thing, and now it's turning into a Grado thing. So,
I mean, I think the highlight is we get to see Kongo Khan on TV more. I honestly feared that when that thing with Braxton kind of wrapped up, we wouldn't see much of him. And I love Kongo Khan, so him getting on TV for even a brief minute every week, I'm gonna take it.
He's pretty impressive. And I was a little worried when he took the loss in India, because India came across a lot like house shows, and in house shows, at house shows in pro wrestling, they don't usually do like DQ finishes so much. They'll do a fall finish, and guys that you don't normally see lose on TV, you might see lose in a house show. I didn't like that he took the pin in that. I think he needs to be unstoppable for a little bit longer, but we'll see where it goes. I'm interested in it, to be totally honest with you. And Laurel tried to ask her out. Grado tried to ask her out, but then Kongo Khan came out, and they did a YouTube upload later that she said yes to Grado. So this could be entertaining television. One match that I forgot to touch on here, I don't know, I missed it in my...
we entirely skipped over the minis, didn't we?
Minis. I don't know how I missed that in my notes. This is what I'll say about the minis. I was very confused at first. They didn't really prepare us for this. The match
They had like one line before the break, and that was supposed to set you up, and it was just kind of a passing line, so you didn't really catch it unless you were looking for it.
Right.
It wasn't good setup.
Yeah, I didn't. I totally missed it, but we got Octagocito versus Demus. And, this match, actually, for what it was, for, 4 minutes of it, was actually pretty good. And I've been to midget wrestling before. I used to be a bouncer at a nightclub for a while, and we had midget wrestling, and it was packed in there. And people will watch midget wrestling just for the sake of entertainment. You don't have to be necessarily invested in the characters or know who they are. You just kind of get a kick out of it. And I think what I liked about this, it wasn't a comedy match. It was just, they were just wrestling. That's all it was. So I can deal with that. I can take that every once in a while. I just don't like, it's valuable TV time for some guys that could use it.
I think the issue was less that they did it and more that they didn't have a reason to do it. It didn't set up any storyline. There was no character progression. They barely even set it up before it happened. And these guys aren't going to be an active, regular part of the TV. I think they just did this to be like, okay, we're going to check off one of the boxes of what people like. Also, we're going to get people on TV to say, hey, look, we have a partnership. It just didn't seem right, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that don't get over, and I don't mean that in the wrestling term. I think there's things that just aren't delivered properly because it's a taped show. And I think if it was live, there would be certain things that they
might
could tighten
expand more upon, because they'd realize, oh, this is live, we'll say blank and blank on this.
Yeah, because you can adjust on the fly, and I think when you have the TV shows taped and then you watch it back and you're like, okay, this didn't come out the way it was supposed to, but for what it was cool. I was entertained with it. I appreciated that it wasn't a comedy match. They didn't, it didn't go too long, and the crowd seemed to enjoy it, so it was cool. All right, so then we got the main event, which was a non-title match, and we don't get many non-title matches when we watch Impact, and there's good and bad to that. I think champions should defend their titles, but I don't think they should defend their titles when it's very randomly. So, like when you get the random Caleb Conley challenging for the X Division when he didn't really earn it, so to speak, on TV. So
it just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, so I don't like when they do title matches out of nowhere like that, but I do think that champions should defend their titles. So they don't do non-title matches very often, but this was a good place for it. I actually, I liked the match, but the whole time I was watching, I was thinking to myself, this is the most illogical face turn I've ever seen. Like with Lashley, because I was buying into the fact. That's how good he is. I was buying into the fact that he was turning face, and I was sitting here, oh my god, when the podcast comes on, who do I talk about that could fill his shoes as a heel? I don't see, maybe EC3. I completely bought into it.
I felt like it. I think the issue is it worked well, but if you break it down to the core storytelling elements, it didn't make sense. I'm going to use a kind of outdated wrestling reference here because I've been watching it recently on the WWE Network. Back in 2009, there was a storyline on SmackDown between CM Punk and Jeff Hardy, where the storyline was that CM Punk didn't like the fact that Jeff Hardy was the face of SmackDown because he did drugs, he had a bad history, he didn't really take care of himself, he was a free spirit, and he didn't like the fact that kids looked up to him, and he didn't like the fact that parents let their kids look up to him. And he was the bad guy because he said your bad parents for letting your kids own the t-shirt. Mm-hmm. I remember thinking to myself, like, yeah, this is working perfectly on TV, but then you sit back and you go, but I mean, if we're taking this to black and white, CM Punk's the good guy. How does it... It's an issue of wrestling sometimes, is what works doesn't always have to make sense on a basic black and white storyboard.
Right.
Because it's going to sell you on the, hey, I want to see him get his ass kicked. But it might not make sense if you're looking at it, basically.
Right. I actually remember that storyline. That was probably one of the last times that I was like super engaged with what they were doing. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I guess I don't really like seeing Santana and Ortiz lose. And this is an issue I've always had in wrestling when your tag team champions, or a tag team in general, loses to a makeshift team. It's a team that's teaming up for the first time.
By basic tag team psychology, you would assume, okay, these guys have been teaming together for years, or even in some cases it's just a few weeks, but like, hey, they've actually been actively working together. They should be able to beat this makeshift team. Unless like it's Superman and John Cena going up against a random tag team champions. Like, I'd say even like the Road Warriors would lose to John Cena and Superman, but for the average tag team to lose to a makeshift team, no, it's just stupid.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen situations where handicap matches, like, oh, your punishment is against a tag team champions, and then they, pull out the win. So it's something that's bothered me. But when they announced this match, I was like, whoa, this is a pretty cool match they put together. I mean, I was really looking forward to this main event, and it was kind of cool to see Lashley work in the babyface role. And, as I said, he's good. He got me. I thought this was some like illogical face turn. And at the end, we get a post-match beat down from LAX. And Lashley turns his back on him and shows his true colors. So that was really good stuff. And I guess I didn't touch on the top of the show when I was talking about the opening segment. I didn't really say what the opening segment was. It was, LAX basically asking him Patron to join him, right? And he said, "Hell no, son of a bitch."
Patron works really well for the kind of crazy middle-aged graying Hispanic guy. He fills a role that you see in a lot of these. I guess you could call them soap operas, which I mean, wrestling's always called the soap opera for men, and it's kind of right. He plays the role of the middle-aged Hispanic man perfectly, because that's what he is. But it just fits perfectly in Impact Wrestling, I think.
But this is the second show in a row that they actually gave us a cliffhanger. And this is something, Vince Russo always says, and people hate Vince Russo. But this is, I personally like the dude. So he said when you're watching a soap opera or you're watching a, some kind of episodic series, there's always some kind of cliffhanger that gets you for the next episode. And there was a show, you're younger, so there was a show I used to watch when, even though it's a total chick show, but I used to watch this show, Desperate Housewives, when I was in my early 20s, and I remember every single week they would hit you with this cliffhanger that I'm like, oh my god, I could not wait for the next show. Right now I watch Arrow. The season's not going on. Love Arrow, and they do a really good job with the cliffhangers. And Russo always said, why doesn't wrestling give you the cliffhangers?
I think Jim Cornette said it once too, which is funny because Jim Cornette and Vince Russo hate each other, but Jim Cornette once said something along the lines of, wrestling isn't a sitcom. You can't just watch an episode here or there. You need to watch it chronologically. So why do they never leave me wanting more? Why do I have to kind of go back on my own? Why is it me having to have the interest? And it's a very good point is, wrestling's supposed to be a episodic show. You have to watch every episode or close to it to really understand what's going on. But hey, we're not going to give you an incentive to most of the time.
Right.
I like the fact that Impact's been doing this lately.
Mm-hmm.
Just even though I'd watch every week, it's convincing me more so. Like, okay, I want to know what happens next.
Right. And this is one of these things where it's an aspect of the show. You know, people are quick to get online and say how sucky this company is. They can't do anything right. You know, they're a joke. But this is one of the things that they do well. And WWE doesn't do that. Ring of Honor doesn't, sure as hell doesn't do that. I guess Lucha Underground does a pretty good job of it. But, you know, there are areas where the company does things better than other companies. But, you know, there's just so much hate, so much blind hate. Or some people just don't want to believe it. Maybe they don't hate the company, but they just, like, I refuse to believe that they're doing something better than this other company I'm watching. You know, people play their, you know, they have their favorites. That's fine. But I'm excited to see, you know, I'm blocking out the whole Page situation. I want to see where they go with this. And I thought this was a great show. I liked last week's show a lot too. I only liked 2 out of the 4 India shows. And, you know, Slammiversary is great. And these next 2 after that I thought were tremendous. So, I don't know what we're getting next week match-wise. I think we just discussed. I think we're going to get Guevara and Drago, which that could be insane.
Yeah, I think that match in particular, it's going to be the highlight of the first round. And I could say it could probably even pull off highlight of the tournament, but I'm not going to just say that out of my ass before we've seen the whole tournament. But it's got I love Drago and I love Guevara. Those 2, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, these next 2 matches, even Richards and Ishimori should be really good because I think Richards' style is going to mesh with the Japanese style really well. And man, I'm just excited to see I'm excited to see what they do with Grado and Laurel. I mean, this is good stuff.
Yeah, I think they're doing a pretty good job right now.
Speaking of Laurel, I feel like they got that curb stop finisher she's using. The curb stomp is not working.
It works for very few people. In fact, I think the only person I've ever seen do it that I actively liked them doing it was Seth Rollins. For the most part, it's just not a finisher that... Because they can't do it like they're trying to hurt the person, like a curb stop is meant to be, because else they kill the person, essentially.
Yeah.
So few people can make it look good, I think is the issue. And she's just not one of the few.
She delivered it to Madison Rayne in her debut match, and that one was really well done. And ever since then, she's just doing like a foot to the small of the back, and it just doesn't look good. I hope she moves on from it. I really do. But so yeah, great episode of Impact. I think they did a lot of good things. There was a couple little tiny things. The Moose and Marufuji match really bothered me. Just expected a lot more, but other than that, really good stuff. So that'll do it for the King of the Mountain podcast this week. Thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe, and we will talk to you guys later. Peace.